The first episode of the show introduces Tumo, a young girl who accidentally drops her phone under the bed with the assistance of a close hanger when she attempts to answer a phone call from a friend early in the morning. She gets her phone back and finds a $10 bill, which makes her feel better. She before long understands that the telephone screen has broken, which causes her to feel miserable similarly as she's handling her blended feelings. Her phone rang once more. She notices a piece of paper with her college plans written on it as she places her phone on the table and smiles because it was Fu Pei who had called her earlier to tell her that he would pick her up soon. She rushes outside to meet Fu after quickly changing into a white dress. She is awestruck when she sees him. She believes she will meet her idol. When Fu Pei takes her for a ride on his bicycle, they accidentally collide with another cyclist. The third cyclist turns out to be a friend of Fu Pei's who is responsible for Tumo's health. As Fu Pei examines her to ensure that she is not hurt, Wayne quickly realizes that the Tumo skirt has become entangled in the wheel. He ripped her skirt, causing the accident in an effort to free it, much to the surprise and dismay of both of them despite the setback. Tumo is urged to immediately leave with Fu Pei because she has a job interview to attend. Tumo waits in the waiting room once he arrives at the business. Fu Pa's friend calls him, asking for his assistance in playing a game at an internet cafe. At first reluctant, Fu Pa eventually agrees when his friend offers to give him any and all game items he desires with some hesitation. Feeling sad about her torn skirt, Fu Pa is completely absorbed in playing a game on his phone, seemingly unaware of her distress. Tumo grants Fu Pa permission to leave. Even though she is upset about being left alone, he promises to buy her a new skirt in the interim. Two more people agree with him. In the meantime, when he gets to his class and his friend asks to borrow a pen, he looks in his bag for a pen and is surprised to find a sanitary pad. When Professor John enters the classroom, he quickly hides the sanitary pad under the table to avoid embarrassment as Tumo prepares for her job interview test. The staff at the company are surprised to see that her skirt is not as torn as they had expected. The interview begins and one of the female staff members. He empties his bag to find out how it got there. Tumo is asked to introduce herself. Tumo says that she is currently pursuing a degree in accounting. Staff members seem perplexed and ask Tumo why she is applying for an advertising internship when her major is accounting. Tumo responds that even though she is pursuing a degree in accounting, advertising is her true passion. Tumo explains that she has a genuine passion for advertising and has been studying advertising, content, reading, and creative. Unfortunately, when she was preparing for her university entrance exams, her family pressured her to choose accounting as her major instead. She also mentions that she hopes the company will give her a chance to demonstrate her worth by enrolling in advertising classes while she was in college. However, when the staff asks to see a graphic sample of her work, she confidently reaches into her bag and discovers that the documents she brought were not advertising graphics but rather ways. The staff then reject her job application to apologize for the misunderstanding and leaves the room feeling embarrassed. Wayne, on the other hand, informs John in the classroom that he forgot his exam card and requests permission to keep him in John's project selection exam. After being denied permission to take the project selection exam, he walks out of the classroom feeling embarrassed and defeated. He is so lost in his thoughts that he doesn't notice two phones ringing in his hand. When he looks at the screen, he sees that it's Fu Pa calling. Fu Pa is worried because he hasn't heard back from Tumo about her interview. One way he answers the phone is because he is worried. As she walked home, Fu Pa inquired about the tumor. She couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed by the earlier incident with Wei Yi. However, her thoughts were interrupted when her phone rang. Fu Pa asked to meet with her in Wei Yi's curious two modes. When they met, Fu Pa introduced two modes away, and Wei then opened his bag to exchange bags. Tumor was perplexed by this request, but he agreed to her surprise in any case. After that, he opened his bag to show what was inside, astonishing Tumo and Fu Pa. He then asked Mo to check her bag, and she found that her sanitary pad was missing. After that, Wade explained that he had taken it by accident and left it under his desk in the classroom. Tumo couldn't help but laugh, and he told Wayne that he could keep it for the next time. When Wayne realized that he had left the pad in the classroom, Tumo told Wayne that he could return the pad the next time, and then he left Fu Pa behind. Tumo showed up to her dorm room smiling, which prompted her roommate Wang Shan to inquire if she had passed her internship interview. Tumo told Wang Shan about the way, who she found amusing. The following day Tumo was in her campus class when the lecturer's laptop suddenly stopped working. The lecturer asked her assistant to call the serviceman, and you walked into the classroom believing that he was the serviceman. Tumo was in her campus class at the time. The instructor requested that he fix her PC quickly. The understudies were eager to see an attractive serviceman, yet soon the associate teacher showed up with a genuine assistance laborer and the speaker requested that way you quit working anyway. He declined since he was nearly completed. After effectively fixing the teacher's PC way, he drew closer to Mo. He called for the key and thanked Timo before leaving the room, and he appeared nervous as he asked her for assistance in retrieving the key that was right under her desk. Professor Shou runs into Wei in the physics practice room. She didn't take the project selection exam with John Shu. She tells you that many other students are competing for a spot in John's project and tells you that you should take the exam again to avoid giving the physics department a bad review. Meanwhile, when Tumo receives a message from a company asking her to come in for an interview, she and Fu Pei are having fun together. She shows it to the person who helps her find the address and offers to drive her there for a fee. However, despite the fact that Tumo is still traumatized by his previous abandonment of her, Fu Pei eventually persuades her to allow him to escort her to the interview. While he was fixing his own phone, we went to a mobile phone supply store to fix the screen. Tumo entered the store with a phone in her hand. Curious, he inquired about what was wrong with her phone. Tumo quickly responded that her screen was broken. Tumo then asked the storekeeper to borrow the necessary tools, but Tumo was initially hesitant. Wayne insisted on helping her because he didn't want to annoy her. After a few minutes, we were able to replace the screens on 2 of the phones, to her relief. The following day, Tumer was excited to go to a job interview, but her excitement quickly turned to disappointment when Fu didn't show up to accompany her to the interview. She tried to get in touch with him, but he didn't respond. Feeling let down, Tumer decided to take the bus on her own. However, on the way to the interview, she was almost hit by a motorcyclist and then had her bag taken away by 2 men on a motorcycle. Tumer was injured in the attack and suffering. She tried to call Fu Pei once more, but Wei answered. Wei, Fu Pei's roommate, said she would let him know about the situation. She tried to call him multiple times, but he didn't answer where he was hurrying. The reason you were at the bus stop surprised Tumer, who has arrived to collect her. She is disappointed that the Fu Peidan did not show up as promised, so Wei suggests she take a taxi. While he is driving, he notices her injured hand and carefully cleans it. Tumo initially resists using a wheelchair because she is embarrassed to do so. However, the doctor treats Tumo's wounds and asks why she is using a wheelchair. He mistakenly thinks they are a couple and smiles after the treatment before offering the wheelchair to Tumo once more, who at first declines, but eventually accepts it outside the room where he watched Pei take control, pushing Mose into a wheelchair. He knew he had to step back and let her boyfriend handle the payment, so he thanked you for taking care of Tumo and they all went to get the medication. But when Fu Pei ran off to get the medicine, he left Tumo behind without saying a word. She tried to follow him on her own, but Tumer became upset when she found that her wheelchair was hard to move. Additionally, she began to shed tears. We could perceive how vexed growth was another he needed to help her decisively. He stepped in and started to push her wheelchair. Growth remained science lost in her own contemplations. Where you could see that she was crying and chose to effectively encourage her. He took a tissue from his pocket and tossed it toward her, making Tumo gaze toward him in shock. When Tumo got back to her dorm, she immediately told her roommates about her experience. However, they seemed uninterested and made insignificant comments, which made Mo feel angry. Soon after, Fu Pei called to see if she had eaten. He had forgotten to send her food because she was playing games at the internet cafe. He tried to calm her down and suggested that they have dinner together. However, Tumo refused and hung up the phone abruptly the following day when he arrived at the physics laboratory to find Shu waiting for him. Shu immediately understood the reason for Shu's presence and informed Shu that he would not meet with Young, thereby preventing Shu from returning. She made an effort to avoid the subject and suggested that he just wanted to talk to Wei, but Wei remained upset and she eventually left, promising to return. After finishing his basketball game, Fu Pei raced to catch up with Tumo, who was still mired in her high school memories. He surprised her and brought her back to the real world. Tumer was pleased to see him, and they talked about their high school experiences for a while. When Fu Pei told her about the time they promised to be together after graduation, she smiled and blushed a little. When Fu Pei noticed too much of her injury and asked her about it, she said that she had fallen on the way to the interview yesterday. Fu Pei immediately felt guilty for not sending her food and checking on her earlier, so he tried to make it up. To her, he offered to accompany her to the interview, but he later realized he had a conflicting event to attend. When he finally arrives, Tumer is seen waiting at the bus stop, worried about going to the interview alone. He tells her that Fu Pei asked him to accompany Tumo because he had a basketball game scheduled in a way that he initially refused. However, Fu Pei is threatening to upload a video of him coercing Wei Yi into reluctantly agreeing to wait for the bus, and he is also attempting to persuade Tumo to call Fu Pei and inform him that she does not want to go with Wei. Tumo, on the other hand, refuse and insist on attending the interview. They board the bus when it arrives, making you still feel uneasy. Wade initially resisted sitting next to Tumo, but he eventually found himself drawn to her and even put on one of her headphones to listen in when she boarded the bus and saw them sitting together. You pretended they were a couple to avoid any further questions about his exam issues, though. Despite Shu's encouragement, she insisted and informed Tumo about the issues with the Wei's exam and how he could still have a chance to retake the test if he met with John. Wei, you didn't take the test again. Insisting that it would be unfair to the other participants who had already taken it, Mo felt bad about the exam incident because their bags were switched, causing them to miss the test. However, reassured that it wasn't her fault, they then watched the comedy show together. Despite their initial awkwardness, Tumo and Wei seemed to be getting closer. Tumo got off the bus as she was walking to her destination, and as she was walking, a motorcycle whizzed by her. This scared her, and she instinctively grabbed hold of the person walking next to her. He looked at her, and they continued walking toward the building. Upon entering the building, Tumo edged alone while you waited outside the office. The building appeared to be in disrepair, and the employees appeared to be in a frenzy, hastily scribbling on leaflets. When Tumo finally reached the head of the company, she observed that he was enraged and yelling on the phone about collecting a debt in spite of his rude behavior. Tumer kept her manners up and introduced herself for the interview. The head of the company looked at her resume, pointed out that her major did not match the position she was applying for, and asked her about her salary expectations. Tumer responded that gaining work experience was more important to her than the salary. The head of the company then shouted at a courier before abruptly ending the interview and asking to mow it a leaf. Tumer thanked the head of the company for his attention and thanked the courier for their assistance. When Tumo left the building, he was busy jotting notes on the ground. They walked quickly to the bus stop, where Wayne noticed Mo's distress and tried to console her by reaching for a bag of bread from his back before she could accept it. Tomo asked him to treat him to dinner in return for accompanying her to the interview and thanked him for doing so, but he declined citing unfinished work. He agreed to go with her to a nearby fast food restaurant because Tumo was persistent. While they ate while Fu Pei sat was present in the room, the restaurant's top toys caught Wei's attention. He called 2 more numbers multiple times. But she didn't respond right away when he got home, which surprised Fu Pei when he asked where you were. When Pei asked Wayne why he had let Tumo pay but why she shouldn't be curious about the results of the 2-month interview, Wayne only said that she. Fu Pei asked him how he felt about the tumor as he was working on his laptop. This made him stop and think back to their bus ride home together when the tumor fell asleep several times and ended up leaning on your shoulder. He pushed her away at first, but then he felt bad and put a tissue on his shoulder so she could sleep better in the now. You said that he didn't pay much attention to her face during their dinner, but that was how you responded to Fu Pei's question about Tumo. He quickly became disoriented while looking online for a comedy show that Tomo had mentioned. Wang Shan and Meng Lu, 2 of her closest friends, were eager to learn the outcome of her interview in the women's dorm room. Tumo explained that the company was not very professional, and even the leader assured her that her major did not match the position she had applied for. Wang Shan also inquired about her meal. Timo surprised her by revealing that she had eaten with Wayne, whom she had assumed her friends would not be aware of. Wang Shan mentioned that he was always competing with her for scholarships on campus, and Meng Lu added that he was known as a good-looking student. They knew him well and were shocked that Tumo had gone out to dinner with him. Tumo's friends made fun of the fact that she spent all of her time watching dramas and following Fu Pei everywhere, and Tumo wondered why she hadn't known about him earlier. Sadly, we had recently become a negative role model after failing an exam because we did not have an exam card with us. Tomo felt bad for Wei when he heard this rumor about him from other students, who said that because of his intelligence, he was arrogant. The next day, Sei Yin, Tumor arrived at the physics department. She was a senior at YE and went to meet Shu. At first, he didn't recognize her, but he later remembered that she was his girlfriend Tumo. Tumo asked her why she wanted to help where you could take a follow-up exam. When Zhang saw Tumo, she introduced her to John, who seemed uninterested in weighing his request for a follow-up exam. Tumo tried to persuade John by stating that he would see a capability if he gave him a chance and that he had been the best physics faculty student for 3 successive years, and Zhang would lament losing him to one more teacher's venture in the wake of hearing this. John at last gave 2 Muslim test papers and requested that she have Wei Yu step through the exam. Cancer was really glad and appreciative and expressed gratitude toward John. After that, Tumo rushes to the men's dorm. She seeks assistance from Fu Pei to call Wei Yi and explain her predicament, despite Fu Pei's assurances that it wasn't her fault and that she need not feel guilty as well. She feels guilty about the accident with Wei's bag that caused him to miss Joan's project selection exam. Fu Pei offers to accompany her to find how Yu and Fao Ke appear. Desirous and gets some information about her assessment of Wei, confounded by the inquiry, Tumo tries not to offer a reasonable response as she is more worried about gathering and settling the issue. Tomo was struck by how handsome you were when he and Fu Pei arrived at the physics lab to observe you working on his invention. How you appeared in his research attire. However, after Fu Pei teased him and Tumo attempted to stop him, he realized that Tumo and Fu Pei were present. Tumo told you that she had met a young man who had asked her to give you the exam question sheet. However, he was irritated and snickered at Tumo for interfering with his problems. Tumo explained that she had met him. Tumo took the exam in an effort to be insulted. He didn't need him because he couldn't solve the physics problems. Weighing not wanting his pride to be insulted, he took the exam question sheet in. Fu Pei fell asleep as Tumo and Fu Pei waited for you to finish the lab exam. Tumo started drawing cartoons on the board, and when he finished all of the problems, he smiled and gave Tumo the answer sheet. After awakening fruit and inviting both men to eat together, she was delighted to see why you smiled for the first time Tumo. When Tumo and Fu Pei showed up at the cafe, Tumo was frustrated to see Fu Pei engaged in calling his gamer companions, disregarding her failure, possibly develop when the server confused her with Fu Pei's sweetheart and Fu Pei did nothing to address the supposition irritated and hurt. Tomo made the decision to consume the beer the waiter provided her with. Expecting to suffocate her distresses, her wild drinking frightened both Fu Pei and Wei, who was sitting opposite her. All of a sudden she strolled into the cafe and joined their table, prodding Wei about his alleged relationship with growth. To Tumo shocked, Wei tranquilly owned up to dating her, and Fao Ke couldn't conceal his envy at the disclosure. Returning from the party, Fu Pei saw that Toma was intoxicated and offered to assist her. Toma, on the other hand, was too proud to accept his assistance, so he joined in with it. Once Toma was inside the dormitory, they made sure he returned safely to the front gate. Fao Ke couldn't help but ask why she thought Tomo and him were dating. To keep Shu from disturbing them on the bus during Toma's job interview, Wei explained that he had acted like Tomo's boyfriend. The following day Tomo checked her phone and discovered that Fu Pei had been attempting to contact her ever since Wang Shan woke her up. She also found out that, the morning after the incident at the bar, an accounting firm had asked her to come in for an interview at their company. Fu Pei is restless and pacing outside the young lady's dorm, sitting tight for Tumo. When Wang Shan emerges, he requests that she assist him with reaching Tumo, yet she lets him know that Tumo has recently awakened and will be down soon. Tumo rises up out of the residence and attempts to leave. Fao Ke, on the other hand, prevents her from wanting to talk about Tomo's night before, insists that she doesn't remember anything, and quickly leaves. In the meantime, when you meet Zhang at his office, Zhang is impressed by the results of his exam. Tumo is thrilled to have been accepted as an intern at the accounting firm and is determined to work hard to secure a permanent position, inviting you to join his project with other top-performing students from the previous exam. Tumo also invites you to join his project. Her manager is hopeful about her potential and believes she will succeed. Following her interview. Several days have passed since Tumo started her internship at the accounting firm, and she was on her way back to the dormitory after work when she encountered. Tumo was carrying her food tray as she heads to the campus canteen for lunch. She calls her mother via IG to share the good news, but her mother is not entirely pleased with the situation because she believes that Tumo should work in their hometown so she can save money on rent and food. At the bus stop, a chaotic scene. Tumo couldn't get a seat on the bus because so many people were fighting for it. Tired of the chaos, Tumo decided to walk back to the dorm and got a call from her mother, IG. Who was stressed over her well-being. IG recommended that Tumo stay at her companion Shu Ping's condo, which was situated close to the workplace. Tumo only needed to clean the apartment because it was empty. Although she was initially hesitant, she eventually agreed because she didn't want to argue about the bus. In the meantime, another student who was also working on Young's project in the physics lab, Ian, was eager to meet Wei and introduced herself. Wei seemed far off and lethargic regardless of her cordiality. In the interim, Tumo had relocated to a large apartment. However, she spent time cleaning and redecorating several because she found the interior to be too sterile. The following day, in the rain while enjoying a snack, her mom she called and reminded her not to messy Shu Peng's loft to Molly and said that she had not made the spot filthy, in spite of the fact that there was food squander heaped onto the table and floor. Tumo was, however, taken aback when she also mentioned that the son of Shu Peng would be coming over the following day. Tumo became more at ease when he found out that he would be coming tomorrow. Tumo made the decision to watch a horror movie by herself, thinking she could clean up the food waste before he arrived. However, her peaceful night turned into a nightmare when she heard someone enter the apartment, fearing for her safety, shouting and armed with a fruit knife. Wayne, however, was the one who entered the apartment, to her surprise. Wei was perplexed as to why he discovered the tumor in his mother's apartment, which was now littered with food scraps and adorned with stickers featuring Dorian. It turned out that Wei's mother Shuping was a close friend of Tumo's mother. However, the two of them were unaware of their mother's friendship. Tumo claimed that her mother had told her to clean everything up the next day. Wayne then clarified that he had intended to arrive the following day, but that because of the heavy rain, he was unable to find a taxi to return to his dorm. As a result, he decided to stay at his mother's apartment. Tumo then called IG because her mother had not informed her that Shu Peng's son was a boy. Tumo was surprised to learn that Shu Peng's son was Weiing. Her mother laughed happily, but she did not respond. Even if Tumo and Shu Peng's son lived in the apartment together, Tumo, on the other hand, expressed her desire to return to the dorms, but her mother forbade it. Later in the evening, Wei Yi asked him to swap rooms with her because she couldn't sleep, but when he saw that she was having a stomachache, he gave her some medicine from his apartment right away. Unfortunately, after taking the medicine to Mo, she fainted. Really looked at the medication and found that it had lapsed. As a result, he called an ambulance, and Tumo was taken to the hospital right away. The specialist who had treated cancer's wounds before was shocked to see where he there with his sweetheart and made sense of that Tumo had a gastrointestinal contamination from eating on clean food. Her condition had been disturbed by taking terminated medicine and she simply should have been treated at home for the time being. Subsequent to being raced to the emergency clinic, growth was dealt with and saved in the medical clinic for perception while she was recuperating. Wayne remained close by, safeguarding her from a kid in the following bed who continued to toss clinical hardware at her. Way he even protected her with his own body to keep her protected. Growth was shocked to awaken and find Wei's face so near hers, and she understood that his hand had been unintentionally squeezing the mixture hose. Wei rapidly got up and made sure she was okay by checking on her. He stayed by Tumo's side as the night wore on. Tumo slept soundly while Yu patiently watched over her until he eventually fell asleep on a bench. The next morning, when Yu awoke, Yu immediately checked on her to make sure she was comfortable and being cared for. Fu Pei called Wei shortly thereafter to request his basketball shoes for a game. Wei declined, stating that he was with Tumo at the hospital. Tumo, who was still recovering when she woke up, noticed her hair was greasy when she checked her appearance on a camera right away. She inquired as to why he didn't have a hair tie, to which he simply replied that he didn't have one after taking care of Tumos and leaving the hospital room to get a hair tie for their greasy hair. However, upon his return, he discovered that Fauke had already met Tumon, was inquiring about her condition, and that Weiang, who had secretly been developing feelings for Tumo, was dissuaded by the presence of Fu Pei and did not give the hair tie to Tumor in the manner that he had originally planned. The two Moon Ways stumbled over their words as they tried to explain that they had simply run into each other on the street, with Tumo asking Wei Yi for help to get to the hospital despite their nervousness, and Fu Pei seemed to believe their explanation when she handed her medicine. After that, the three of them took a taxi back to campus, with Fu Pei showing concern for Tumo and leaving Wayne behind. Wayne looked disappointed and envious as he watched them leave, and he eventually threw away the hair tie that he had brought for Tumo after dropping her off at the dorm. Fu Pei happens to meet Wang Shan, who just got back from shopping. Wang Shan tells Fauke that Tumo has moved into an apartment and no longer lives in the female dormitory. Whoever was unaware of the two most recent living arrangements was surprised by this new development. While he is packing his belongings, he gets a message from Tumo asking for the keys to his apartment. She says that she left her keys inside the apartment and needs your help to keep her new home a secret. Wayne is still upset about the incident from before. Peruses the message, yet decides not to. Fu Pei decided to follow Tumo in secret because he was suspicious of her. While he was spying on her, he saw Tumo and Yu meet in front of the dormitory to ask Mo why he did not respond to her message asking for the apartment keys. However, knowing that she did not have the apartment keys with her, Yu pretended not to have received it and then asked him to accompany him. They had no idea. When Tumo moves her belongings out of the female dormitory and into her new apartment, Fu Pei becomes suspicious of her behavior and decides to follow her. He ends up seeing her meet Wei, and later they both break into Wei's apartment. Inside, Tumo starts packing while Wei looks on with a sour expression when two more notice. Fu Pei was shocked to see them doing this together. She inquires about the issue, but he dismisses it. As she's hanging a sweeping out to dry, it gets found out on a tree limb and she asks Wei Yu for help recovering it utilizing a close-by branch. He does manage to remove it from her head as he does so. She feels a sudden pull toward him, and they talk for a while before being interrupted by fruit payments. Wayne tries to explain that there is nothing between him and Tumo during their conversation, but Fu Pei remains skeptical. He acts courageously, let his companions know that they make an incredible couple and wishing them bliss. However, inside his heart, he continues to fantasize about Tumo and your future together as he drives away, despite the fact that he is aware he must move on. Tumo attempts to divert herself by washing a cover, yet winds up harming her hand. Wayne goes to purchase wound mortar and passes on her to quiet down. When he returns, he brings watermelon and the mortar for 2 cuts. In the meantime, Fu Pei drinks himself to death, and Wang Shan notices his sadness and offers to help him study for his next exam. Fu Pei tells a lie when he says he's upset about failing his exam, but in fact, he's sad about 2 more. A couple of days had passed since Tumo's profound breakdown. Her mom Ig was remaining at their loft. Tumo got back from work and drooped onto the couch feeling depleted. Aichi remarked that Tumo expected to sit all the more smoothly to draw in Yi consideration, however Tumo forgot about it and said she couldn't have cared less. However, the Aichita smiled knowingly the day before Ig left when Tumor suddenly stood up straight when he got home and tried to look more attractive. She asked Tomo to sign a contract that said she wouldn't leave the apartment. Tomo initially said no, but he eventually gave in and signed the contract as soon as I left. Pressed her possessions, and chose to get back to the quarters. She sent Wei a message bidding farewell and he seemed miserable after understanding it. Tumo's busy days juggling work and thesis guidance led her to skip meals and neglect her health. Her companions are stressed over her and express their. In the meantime, as he feels alone in the apartment since Tumo left, he finds himself thinking back on the things she left behind. In contrast, Tumo was expelled from the dorm for breaking the rules when she had to wake up Palin, the dorm's head, in the middle of the day to help Fu Pei pass his exams. Wang Shan has been tutoring him for a few days. Fu Pei asks for a gift to reunite with Tumo instead of concentrating on his studies. Wang Shan is perplexed by his request and wonders why he didn't just ask Tumo directly. Despite her confusion, Wang Shan decides to grant Fu Pei's request, and he takes the gifted test without realizing that someone is beginning to feel for him. To her boss's surprise, Tumor had finally decided to quit her internship. She was getting along well at work. However, Tumo had come to the realization that she wanted to work as an advertising designer, which was a career that she was truly passionate about. His words of encouragement echoed in her head, reminding her to follow her heart and do something that she truly enjoyed. Meanwhile, he found himself standing in front of the female dormitory building on campus, missing two of the most important presents more and more each day. Tumo appeared at the window just as he was about to leave, sad and longing to see her. When she asked him why he was there, he quickly came up with the response that he was lost and hadn't been there in a long time. Although Tumo seemed to believe him, he couldn't help but feel disappointed that he couldn't tell her how he felt. A while later, her script had just been completed by Tumo, feeling satisfied with her work and accomplished. Notwithstanding, her tranquility was unexpectedly hindered by a call from Wei Yi, who advised her to return to their condo since she planned to visit Tumo, became restless and started pressing her possessions in a rush. Wang Shan, Tumo's friend, was surprised when she told him that she was afraid of being forced to stay with Wayne and that she wanted to set her up with Wayne. Wayne had quite recently illuminated her that she was coming over, which made her feel even more pressure to leave. Wang Shan offered to go with her. He even suggested making it look like Tumo lived in waves so that cheer wouldn't always come by unannounced, and Tumo agreed to the plan, thankful for Wang Shan's assistance. In the interim, we had even cleaned all of the rooms to make it more welcoming for Tumor when she arrived at his apartment, which we had been eagerly awaiting. However, when he realized that Tumo had invited her friend Wang Shan to accompany her upon Tumolo's arrival, his excitement was somewhat dampened. She inquired about her mother, but Yu informed her that she had not arrived, prompting her to contemplate returning to her dorm. She was stopped by Wang Shan, who informed her that someone else would be arriving shortly. When the doorbell rang, Fu Pei arrived with drinks and snacks for everyone. Since the atmosphere was awkward, Wang Shan suggested they watch a horror movie to break the tension. He greeted Tumo and waited as if nothing had happened between them. Tumo, Fu Pei and the movie both looked scared, but Tumo Fu Pei was especially scared, covering her face with a pillow during the scary scenes. Much to his amusement, as the movie went on, a ghost appeared on the screen, causing Wang Shan to accidentally push to move forward, which was fortunate that he caught her quickly. Be that as it may, Fu Pei couldn't resist the opportunity to feel envious of their closeness after the film finished. Full page ranked much more and ultimately turned out to be totally inebriated notice and proposed to bring him back home. The following day Tumor is eager to return to the dorm after the awkward night, but he doesn't seem ready to let her go. A variety of justifications until she stays in his apartment. They go to the supermarket that evening to get food, and Tumo becomes interested in the variety of pastries on display. However, when Tumo offers him a bite, he happily accepts, bringing a smile to the cake seller's face as the days passed and they continued spending time together. The cake seller offers you a sample of the cake but declines, citing his dislike of sweet foods. Once in a while, Tumor enters Wei Yi's bedroom to find him still asleep. She tries to wake him up, but when he doesn't move, she is taken in by his attractive face and reaches out to check his breathing. However, he abruptly opens his eyes, shocking her. He inquires as to why she is in his room, and Mo responds by stating that she called him to eat shortly after the two of them had eaten while watching a horror movie in order to cover her face with a pillow out of cowardice and fear. Yu asked why she was watching a film that frightened her. Unexpectedly the doorbell rang and Fu Pei showed up needing to converse with Tumo, and Fu Pei emerged from after a while apartment heading to the park. As they sat together in the garden, two of them most suddenly sprinted back to the apartment, appearing to be escaping from Fu Pei's embrace. Upon her return, he handed her a beer can and inquired about Fu Pei's visit, a departure from his usual lack of interest in other people's affairs. He suddenly became interested some time prior to the apartment events. In the garden, Tumo and Fu Pei talked, and Fu Pei expresses his desire to be with Tumo. Tomo, however, admitted that she had stopped loving him a long time ago due to his failure to keep his promises, and Fu Pei then asked her if she was in love with someone else. She said that she had rejected him because they were incompatible. When Tumor suddenly hugged her and pleaded with her for a second chance, promising to change his ways, and Tumor reiterated that she no longer loved him, especially seeing him kiss Wangshan was the final straw that made her decide to stop loving him. After Tumo shared her story with Wadey, Fauke became visibly enraged and desired to kiss her, but he insisted and tried to force a kiss on her. She pushed him away and left the garden feeling disgusted and betrayed by his actions. However, Tumo stopped him, informed him that she had already rejected Fu Pei, and struck him when he attempted to force her away. Tumo was relieved to learn that she had rejected, so he went to his room to conceal his joy. Fu Pei confessed to Wangshan that he had expressed his love to Tumo, but she had rejected him. Wang Shan admitted that she had suspected Fu Pei had feelings for Tumo and claimed that she liked him enough to wait for him even if he. Fu Pei was heartbroken and refused to answer Wang Shan's calls when he returned to his dorm. Wangshan was waiting for him and offered to treat his injured cheek. Despite her offer, Fu Pei refused to be with Wangshan because he still had feelings for Tumo. The following few days following the incident, while Tumo and Wangshan were working on their thesis, they ran into Wei Yi and his new friend Yu. Weighing Yu in, Tumo recognized Yu as the girl who had previously helped Wei Yi find a room, but Tumo felt a little sad because of how close you were. Pei Tumo sympathized with Wang Shan because she knew how Fu. Wang Shan suddenly confessed to a tumor that she had already expressed her feelings to Fu. Tumor was excited about her birthday celebration with her friends at Wei's apartment one day. They had a great time taking pictures and playing games, and during one of the games, Tumor lost and had to make 20 seconds of eye contact with someone wearing the same color clothes as her. You couldn't stop looking at her lovingly. They had to stare at each other until they were both lost in their own world because Wei's clothes were almost the same color as hers. The party came to an end, and the women had to help the drunk men get home. Tumor had to clean up after Wayne, who was so drunk that she couldn't even get him to sleep in the bedroom. She gave up and let him sleep on the couch. Later in the evening, Tumo went to check on Wei Yi, who was sleeping in a sitting position, because he couldn't sleep. She tried to put him down, but his body was close to falling, so she caught him at that moment. Wayne out of nowhere awakened and kissed him over prior to falling back snoozing. However, she was irritated with him. Growth actually dealt with him and ensured he was agreeable the following morning. Cancer awakened feeling invigorated and cheerful subsequent to dreaming about Wei's admission of adoration. She was anticipating seeing him and hearing his genuine sentiments. As she got out of her room, she saw Wei Yi previously hanging tight for her at the eating table prepared. Wayne started talking about the party last night at breakfast, which made Tumo's hearts race with anticipation. However, to her dismay, he only apologized for leaving her to clean up after the booze-soaked particles. Tumo couldn't hide her disappointment, so she tried to bring up the kiss in the hope that Yu would remember and confess his love for her. But to her surprise, he was also perplexed by the Tumo's questions because he had no recollection of the kiss. She rushed away from the table, leaving Mo baffled and perplexed about what he had, which irritated him. Mo could have believed it. Tumo finally found the strength to confess to Wayne that he had kissed her while he was intoxicated one day. Wayne was caught off guard and had no idea what had happened. He tried desperately to remember the moment and wondered if he really did kiss Tumo. Tumo brought a few cans of beer and made Wayne drink them, despite his initial reluctance. But even after drinking the beer, he continued to drink after giving in to her demands. Tumor decided to take matters into her own hands, bringing his face closer to hers in the hopes that it would jog his memory. To her surprise, he began to recall the event and even tried to kiss her again, but Tomo stopped him and went straight to her room, overwhelmed with emotion. We could still not recall the incident. After the drunken kiss incident, Wai came to the realization that he had feelings for Tumo and made the decision to tell her that he loved her. He sought advice from his friend Young and devised a plan to tell her about his love in a letter that combined physics and math formulas. In the meantime, Tumor came home to find that there had been a power outage in the apartment, leaving her without heat. She called Wayne and asked him to buy her a room warmer, which he did. Later, Wayne called her downstairs and told her that it was snowing outside. Tumor opened her window and went outside to enjoy the snow, unaware that Wayne was watching her lovingly. Finally found the strength to approach Mo and hand her the love letter. However, she was unable to comprehend the physics and math formulas in the letter. Tomo returned the letter to Wayne, leaving Wayne frustrated that his extravagant act of love did not quite go as planned, and Wayne became confused as he tried to explain. After that, the street vendor sold the two of them snacks. He noticed that Toomer was only wearing thin clothes and slippers in the cold winter weather, and the kind hawker had given them extra food. When he saw Toomer's condition, he was worried about her health, so he offered to know his jacket and helped her roll up her sleeves, even though he still looked gloomy. Motive seemed to understand his attempts to confess his feelings, which made her feel that his caring act touched her. Nevertheless, because she recalled their previous kiss, she felt conflicted about her own feelings for Wayne and quickly released her hand from his grasp. Wayne attempted to express his feelings once more in the apartment, this time through a poem, in the hope that Toomer would finally comprehend his intentions. However, Toomer failed to comprehend Wayne's meaning once more, leaving Wayne feeling disappointed and wondering whether Toomer had any feelings for him. Wei Yi and Tumo were having breakfast together a few days after the incident at the street vendor. Tumo took a deep breath and finally got up the courage to ask if he liked her Wei. He was surprised by the sudden question and was briefly speechless. Tomo coughed awkwardly because she was embarrassed and thought her feelings were unrequited. She waited for you to respond, and when you did, she was overcome with emotion and lowered her head in shame. Wayne asked Tomo again if she liked him, and she timidly hinted that she did. The tension subsided, and they both felt relieved that their feelings were genuine. Tumo was overjoyed. Opted to retreat to her room to enjoy her joy. She chose her best garments and enhanced herself as flawlessly as conceivable in the meantime, where he was in the kitchen lost in a fantasy and totally ignorant that he had spilled water on his jeans, splashing them. As time elapsed, they became inseparable as the relationship between the two most grew stronger. Their love only continued to blossom after they graduated from university, entered the workforce, and continued to build a life together. They supported each other through their personal and academic struggles. They began planning their wedding a few months later, when he proposed to a Toomer and she happily accepted. The ceremony was beautiful. They traded promises before their families and companions and vowed to adore each other forever eventually. With a love that had stood the test of time, Wayne and Tumo made their happily ever after. They were thankful for one another and for the excursion that had united them. The moral of the story is that if you want to find true love, just give a stranger your jacket and share some snacks with them. Who knows? They might just be the person you've been looking for all along. Please enable notifications, subscribe for additional videos similar to this one, and like the channel to show your support. We sincerely appreciate your attention.